I'm excited that we're going out to dinner, finally.
Yes.
I've been looking forward to this date with you. This is how you know it's getting serious. Yes, yes. And I know that on day one, we talked about eating out. And eating out can be pretty difficult. I mean, especially if you are a social butterfly like you, and part of your social life is going out for food, for drinks. If it's just something you enjoy because you're a foodie, it can be really hard to balance a healthy lifestyle with dining out. Has that been your experience?
Yeah, you're speaking my language right now because that's been the big toss-up, and it's almost like, do you just sacrifice it altogether where you're like, I'm not going out at all, or do you kind of find that balance? And that's really what I'm looking for. I don't want to, altogether get rid of it. There are some choices that, I could, but, I'm really trying to find that balance. So how can I go out and make healthier choices when I am out, especially on weeks like this week where, for the most part, we have something of an outing of some sort planned every single day.
Because you're on break from work.
Yes.
And that's what it is. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll meet those people once in a while who just really don't care about going out to eat. They're just introverted. It's really easy for them to just stay home and say no. But for, I would guess, like 90% of people, that's just not the case. What kinds of things don't matter to you could throw to the wayside in terms of eating out, going out, or relying on takeout, order in, those kinds of things?
Yeah, so sometimes an easy filler for Marcus and I, even when it's not necessarily a planned event, is for us just to go out to eat.
Gotcha.
Today, for example, we had plans earlier, they didn't end up happening, so the first thought was, well, let's go out to lunch. So we had to shift that conversation to well, why don't we do a longer workout instead?
Yeah. Great things. Two things. One, it's finding things to revolve your social life around that doesn't always involve food, or for some people alcohol, which we're definitely going to talk about today, would be looking at your week as a whole, kind of zooming out of your schedule and saying, okay, I know that we're going out to eat a handful of times this week, and I'd rather capitalize on those moments to enjoy more fun foods or things I normally wouldn't eat, rather than just lunch on a Tuesday.
Right. Yeah.
So let's talk about being at a Mexican restaurant, because I hear from clients a lot that Mexican restaurants and Italian restaurants can be really triggering, because right when you sit down, before you even get your water, they're like, here is a big plate of salty, crispy, carby goodness. And I hear over and over again that people are like, by the time I get my entree, I'm not even hungry for my food, because I've eaten all these chips and salsa and buttered bread if they're in an Italian restaurant. I know that's happened to me, especially if I am ravenous or hungry. Has it ever happened for you?
Oh, to a T.
Yeah.
In fact, last time we were here, that's exactly what happened. We got chips and guac, and I was so full by the time that my entree came out. I had one bite, and I was like, I'm full. I'm not going to keep eating.
Yeah, you just fill it, and you feel like a waste.
But then you bring it home, and then it's at home. So what do you do the next day? You heat it up, so.
And keep the party going.
Cycle. All right, Kate. We're about to get to the fun and order some drinks. What do you suggest? What are your go-tos?
Well, I would always say to look for something that doesn't have a whole lot of added sugar. And that's where you can really get into trouble with cocktails and mixed drinks, especially margaritas. They love to put it in the juice, the simple syrup, the agave, all of the frozen purees. So the more simple and true to the source of a drink you get, the better. I'd also pick something that really satisfies you, and maybe that you can sip a bit slower. That way you're not tempted to order drink after drink after drink, because that's where it can add up.
So first, let me add, what I'm hearing is check out the ingredients.
Yep,
which is the same for the food. So for your drinks, look at what's in there, because sometimes I look at the alcohol, what type of alcohol is in there, not necessarily what other ingredients. So that'll be key for me moving forward. But my go-tos, I'm a Tito's girl, so I'm usually a Tito soda lime or seltzers, because Tito's don't always feel so great the next day, so seltzers, I know I can wake up and still be productive the next day. So one of those two.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so one of my go-tos is always fajitas, so that's what I'm leaning toward.
Yeah.
But I feel like, is that not the best option?
I think it's a really good balanced option. They definitely give you really large portions. And whenever you're going out to eat, I find that a lot of people sometimes restrict their overall nutrition throughout the day, and they try to save their calories. Then they sit down at a meal, especially in a Mexican restaurant where there's a lot of food, and overeat. So if you've been eating your consistent meals throughout the day, you've had balanced meals, anticipate that when you get a big plate of food, while that's really nutritious, you might not be hungry enough to eat at all. The good thing about fajitas is they've got protein. They do have a little bit of veggie in there with the pico de gallo. Yeah, it's not going to be the most veggie dense, unless it does come with the fajita vegetables, which I don't see on this one that it does. Mm-hmm. And then maybe picking and choosing how much of the sides that you eat. The Mexican rice, the refried beans, and the tortillas can be a lot of starch in one sitting.
Right.
So you don't need to finish it all.
All right. Glancing over at the margarita chicken, I think that might be a better option.
I was looking at the margarita chicken. Okay, so we see the margarita chicken is chicken with onions, cilantro, lettuce, sour cream, pico de gallo, guac, and Mexican rice. Really balanced, nutrient dense. And again, you might not be hungry enough to eat the whole thing, but at least you're going to get more balance and still a good amount of flavor. I don't want people to be scared of things like guacamole and sour cream because a little bit adds a lot of satiety to the meal. So if you're not mentally satisfied with what you're eating, you're going to go home and overeat something else that you have in the pantry. So don't be afraid of those little fats.
All right. Well, sounds like margarita chicken. It is.
I dig it.
Yes.
Sometimes when I go out to Mexican restaurants, I really just think about my week as a whole. If I'm like, all right, this is like the night out with my girls, or I'm on a date night, I'm like, I'm just going to get what I want because it tastes good. I do it. And I would get something a little bit more decadent, probably smothered in queso, for being honest. But when I think about my week, it's Tuesday, and I went out to eat with company this weekend. I ate out more than I really even like to eat out. So I'm going to really dial in at this meal and just kind of order what I would normally eat, especially because I'm going to enjoy an alcoholic beverage. So I have a pick 2 of 5 guiding principle, is what I call it. So if you're going somewhere that has chips or a bread basket or something free, that's one of the 5. The other things are appetizers, drinks, a really decadent menu item, something like smothered in queso, and a dessert. And my rule of thumb is if you're somebody who goes out to eat a lot and it's not a special occasion, just pick 2 things. You don't need chips and an appetizer and a drink and a dessert. Pick 1 drink and the chips, like we're doing. Or skip the chips and the appetizer and do 2 drinks if that suits your fancy. But the more you can kind of hone it in, the less out of control you're going to get with all of the add-ons.
Yes. So in terms of what to drink, what are your like key look-fors? Because I tend to be pretty bland. I'm like a Tito's girl, so it's usually Tito's soda lime or like a seltzer girl. However, when I'm like at a place like here, you know, where it's like Taco Tuesday, I want to like get a margarita or mojito or something that's a little more flavorful. So when I'm going more like of the cocktail route, you know, a little outside of my norm, what would you say are your suggestions?
So the more simple you can keep a beverage, the better. But it should still be something you enjoy. So I really like what we ordered. We kept it simple with a margarita, and this actually has muddled blueberries in it, a little bit of agave, which is a sugar. A lot of people think that agave or honey or maple syrup is a healthier alternative to cane sugar. And while it's a little bit more nutrient dense, it still acts as a sugar in your body. So what you don't want to do is have something with agave and orange juice and a kind of frozen concoction thing that they pull out from the lever, because then you're going to get even more sugar on top of agave. So we just kept it simple with actual fruit, agave, tequila, and lime.
Yes, and it's delicious. So do you recommend that you typically like view the menu before you go out and like kind of decide on what you're going to get, or is it more of like a spur of the moment, we're here, let's see, what do you recommend?
It never hurts to plan ahead. I encourage it, especially as you start to get in the groove of thinking about how to eat healthy, especially when going out. Never hurts.
One thing you've really been hitting home with me is excuses, and I think mentally I make these excuses when I'm going out. Like I'm going out to eat, so everything's going to be unhealthy anyway, so I might as well just get the loaded nachos with the extra queso, or, you know, like whatever it is. So, you know, it's like if you plan ahead, you almost go into it with a game plan instead of being like, well, I'm already out anyways. It would have been healthy if I ate at home, you know, like making those excuses for why you can continue to eat like crap when you're out instead of making a healthy choice.
The brain is funny. It's going to look for reasons to do what it's used to doing. So if you're wired to just order whatever sounds good, then your brain's going to look for reasons to tell you to do that. So you have to almost be the parent of your own brain and say, you know what, brain, I get it. Like, you want this, it sounds good, it tastes good, it's going to give you that instant gratification. But again, let's look at the big picture. Why am I doing this? Why is it important? Even if you think in the short term, how are you going to feel when you walk out of that restaurant? Are you going to feel sick and uncomfortable and just make a beeline for your couch? Or are you going to feel really good and happy about the decision you made? Whatever is important to you and whatever motivates you to make the better decision and override those subconscious excuses to do the same old, use it. Find what works.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me too, it's not even just how you feel when you get home.
Yeah.
It's the next morning. Like when I wake up and I still feel so like blah, and I don't even want to get up. Like I just want to lay in bed. It's that next day feeling.
Yeah.
It's like a food hangover
It
almost
is.
that you get. Yeah. It's funny because Chipotle, which I would say isn't the most unhealthy option, you know, of all the options there, you know, compared to like McDonald's, Checkers, you know, places like that. It gives me like such a bad feeling for whatever reason when I'm done eating it.
Yeah.
And I eventually had to sit down and be like, why do I want to keep eating this? Like, yes, it tastes satisfying, but the way that it makes me feel just isn't worth it.
It's not worth it.
Even now, sometimes when I'll be like Chipotle, you know, Marcus will have to kind of check me, which is good, and he'll say, "Are you trying to like be on the couch all night and all day tomorrow?" You know, because he knows. I just get this super blah feeling from it. And while, you know, it is somewhat nutrient dense and it's a healthier option, it just, for me, it does not give me that good feeling afterwards. I feel the opposite.
So I know you were doing some journaling. Is that ever something that you reflect on in your journal?
I think almost mentally I expect to feel bad.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and that kind of plays into when am I going to eat out or what am I going to do when I'm eating out. So, you know, and that, because typically it's on the weekends. It's either a Friday night, a Saturday, or a Sunday. Well, I know that if I have like a jam-packed Saturday, it's not going to be Friday night because I don't want to wake up feeling crappy. Like, you know, I want to have my energy. I want to feel good to go. So I think that because I already know that it generally makes me feel you know, that I typically, that's what helps me plan my different meals about it.
Cool.
Ooh, speaking of nutrient-dense foods. Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This meal really represents something that I would make at home. I've got good lean protein here. I've got shrimp, I've got my mahi, and it's definitely a big serving, but protein makes me feel really full, so this is something that I'll go for. I've also got good healthy fats for my guacamole. And a lot of the food that you get when you eat out is going to be cooked in oils. It's just the nature of how they prepare things here. So I don't need a really large serving of fats on the side. I've also got beans and rice for my carbohydrates. I'm not afraid of eating carbohydrates because if I skip carbohydrates at meals, I go home and I eat carbohydrates from a less nutritious source. This is a pretty big serving and I know I'm not going to finish it. But if you're someone who is an athlete and you're burning a lot of energy, doing marathons, doing intense training, you will need more carbohydrates than you or me who aren't doing that kind of workouts. We're doing more things just for our basic health and overall well-being.
That's good. Well, I feel like taking away from this is just a better way for me to hold myself accountable and to go into it already with that mental process of this is how I'm going to like tackle my meals, whether it's the 2 out of 5 or planning ahead of time what I'm going to eat, deciding, you know, if it's going to be a meal that is going to, for the most part, stick to how I'm trying to eat, or if it's just going to be like my cheat meal of the week, and, you know, depending on your schedule and whatnot. So definitely tons of takeaways.
Cool.
And the alcohol too.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. Food was great. Conversation was great. I'm really proud and impressed with you. Next up is the kitchen audit. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Okay, and since we're on the topic, I will let you know that there's definitely some enchilada salsa in my kitchen because I love Mexican food. So I'm glad you were able to come here today because this is definitely one of my go-tos. It's something that I crave all the time. And I just kind of give you a preview of what you might see in the kitchen audit.
Noted.